Today we're going to discuss how to start your own successful funding business, and we're also going to discuss the 3 secrets to being successful as an entrepreneur. 3 secrets that you probably have never heard before, so make sure you listen up. And here's the other thing about having your own funding business that I think is extremely important, because it's not just about the money that you can make. And you've experienced what I'm about to say, so you understand. It's also about the lives you can impact, but the rooms that you can walk in and have an impact in those rooms. I've been able to connect with politicians, man. I've been able to connect with, anything that you can possibly imagine that we desire in life, whether it's politics, luxury yachts, cars, jewelry, travel, private jets, homes. Whatever you can possibly imagine, the foundation of it is money. There is no industry where the vast majority of entrepreneurs in that industry don't need access to what it is that you have. So if you can focus on this funding piece and focus on really hyper targeting an industry, not only will you make a bunch of money, but you're actually going to be one of the most significant people in that space, because all of the entrepreneurs are going to seek you for access to the capital that they need to succeed. All right, King here, my main man, Eric Alvarez with highticketofferfinancing.com. Today, we're going to discuss how to start your own successful funding business. And we're also going to discuss the 3 secrets to being successful as an entrepreneur. 3 secrets that you probably have never heard before. So make sure you listen up.
So how about we start first off with, what does it mean to have your own funding business? What is that?
I got into funding when I was about 26 years old. And before that, I was really struggling to kind of gain my way as an entrepreneur. Literally, I always had a very strong work ethic. Like, I was somebody who wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty. I particularly liked the internet, but at that time, the internet wasn't necessarily big yet. So I was one of the first people that was really trying to make money online. And I kept starting businesses that had low profit margins, like clothing lines, or just selling a multitude of just small profit margin products. And, even though I was making a couple of sales every single day, and it just wasn't exciting me, like making $40, $100, like it just wasn't giving me the excitement that I wanted.
Yeah, not enough margin in that.
Not enough margin in that, man. I'm working all day, and all I'm doing is getting enough money to eat. And that is actually the story of a lot of entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, it was once I stumbled into funding, what was interesting about it was that I actually had no prior experience with credit at all. So to be honest with you, before I got into funding, it took me a year to even understand what it is that funding was. I had no idea what credit was. I had no idea how credit could be utilized to not only gain access to money, but also to start your own business, to buy homes, cars. I just had no understanding of any of this. So when I finally did grasp the concept that with good credit, you can gain access to funding. With good credit, you can gain access to personal funding, business funding. You can take your whole life and your business to the next level. Man, the first time I actually closed a deal and I made my first $700 doing a closing a funding deal, it was literally the most exciting $700 I've ever made. Because it was the
most you ever made on a single transaction at that point?
At that time, yeah, it was the most I've ever made on a single transaction. So what's interesting about that is that the funding, and as you know, we help clients get a multitude of different types of capital. Some of them might come in and only get 30,000. Some of them may come in and get $1 million, right? And we earn only based on performance. But what that taught me, that $700 taught me was, first of all, I made one call to one person who had the credit, and I got paid $700. They didn't have to pay anything up front. They literally were so eager to try it because they needed the money. But ultimately, we both got to see if it worked without having to put any skin in the game, except me making a phone call, them filling out a document. And it worked out, and I got paid my first $700. And from there, it was a wrap for me. Like, I was like, all right, cool. If I can make $700 on this one transaction, then how much can I really do if I really double down on this? And remember, I was telling you that I've never had a problem with working hard. It was just finding something that was going to work, that was going to pay me what I thought I was worth, and funding did that.
Yeah, the right vehicle.
The right vehicle is important. So once I anchored onto that, I just focused on it and took it to the next level. And I ended up doing 150 deals in my first year in the funding space. I was literally homeless the year before and did 150 deals my first year. And my biggest transactions were not, $700. Like, there were days where I literally walk home with $100,000. So it was like, for me to go from where I was to doing this, and here's the other thing about having your own funding business that I think is extremely important, because it's not just about the money that you can make. And you've experienced what I'm about to say, so you understand. It's also about the lives you can impact, but the rooms that you can walk in and have an impact in those rooms. I've been able to connect with politicians, man. I've been able to connect with, anything that you can possibly imagine that we desire in life, whether it's politics, luxury yachts, cars, jewelry, travel, private jets, homes. Whatever you can possibly imagine, the foundation of it is money. I tell people all the time that if you have your own funding business, you can literally pick and choose who you want to serve. What industry do you want to serve? What demographic do you want to serve? What people do you want to get close to? I am literally a classic example. I am literally an example in real life of somebody who's been able to gain so many connections with powerful people as a result of the funding mechanism that we have. And I think for me to be able to see all of these different people not only get help, but you guys have to understand that, let's just talk about the facts. 98% of all entrepreneurs have never made $1 million before. 86% of all entrepreneurs have not even made $100,000 as an entrepreneur. And the real reason why that takes place is because of two main reasons. The two main reasons why entrepreneurs don't cross those thresholds is, number one, they're trying to sell a low margin product with no capital to market and promote that low margin product. If you're in a low margin industry, most likely you have tons of competition. So now not only are you selling a product with low margin, but now your competition pool is huge. So now you need even more money to show up above your competition. It's not just as easy as putting a couple dollars behind an ad and getting in front of 20 people. Getting in front of 5,000 people with your t-shirt and everybody's going to buy. It doesn't work like that.
50,000 people.
50,000.
That would be 100,000 to hit 1 million, 50,000 people.
So how much does it cost to get in front of 100,000 people? Or 50,000 people? How much does it cost to get in front of 50,000 people?
Let's say it's about $3 per qualified person. 50,000. That's 50,000 times 3, 150,000, and that's pretty good. So
let's say you're right. You just made $1 million off of 150,000 ad spend. But how do you get the 150,000 ad spend, right? The average Black American has less than 17,000 in the bank. The average Latino American has less than 23,000 in the bank. Nobody is going to roll their last bit of money into ads. Like, that's almost being like a kamikaze in business, right? So what ends up happening is most entrepreneurs just end up never reaching that mark, right? And then we end up coming up with all these excuses as to why it didn't happen for them. The other side of it is the other way that entrepreneurs fail without funding is they have a high ticket offer, but they don't have financing options. Guess what? You could sell a product for $10,000 or more. Great. Now you only need 100 people to buy your product. However, if you don't have financing options that work, how are you going to get 100 people to buy that product when we just said that the average Black American has less than 17,000 in the bank and the average Latino American has less than 23,000 in the bank? How are they getting access to this? How are they getting access to this cash? The reality is that every single business that we see succeed has financing options integrated into it. You can't go to a grocery store that's successful and not be able to pay with credit. And they all offer you what? Points, reward cards, things like that, incentive bonuses for you to do what? Integrate credit into their business. Whether it's low ticket products or high ticket products, Lamborghinis, $1 million homes, college tuitions, it doesn't matter. The entire US economy is built off of credit. So I explain to people all the time that having your own funding business, you choose what industry you want to impact. You choose. It's not, there is no industry where the vast majority of entrepreneurs in that industry don't need access to what it is that you have. So if you can focus on this funding piece and focus on really hyper targeting an industry, you can become, not only will you make a bunch of money, but you're actually going to be one of the most significant people in that space, because all of the entrepreneurs are going to seek you for access to the capital that they need to succeed. And the other beautiful thing about it that I love is that you can maneuver that access into any industry that you want to, right? So I started off in music. Now I have clients that are in film. I have clients that are in Airbnbs, Amazon stores, jewelry stores, private jets, right? Exotic cars, yachts. Why? Because you're only limited to your imagination. And that's the thing about currency. Currency is energy, right? So when you understand the root foundation of what currency is energy. Energy can shift wherever it goes. It can shift. It can become something different. That's the same thing and the same quality that money actually has. The ability to shapeshift and take you wherever it is that your mind can imagine. See, Elon Musk, his mind imagines him going to outer space and colonizing other planets, right? Guess what Elon Musk needed in order to do that, and still needs to this day? Money. It doesn't matter how much money Elon Musk has, he still needs more money to do what it is that he wants to do. So it doesn't matter how much money you have as an entrepreneur, you still need more if you want to continue to succeed and compete in the marketplace as an entrepreneur. And so as a funding consultant, you have the opportunity to impact everybody. But it's not just enough to just be a funding consultant. You have to be a funding consultant with funding that works at scale. Mm-hmm. Because if I became a funding consultant, and I'm just being completely honest, if I became a funding consultant when I did, if I started my funding business when I did, and the funding option didn't work the way ours works, I wouldn't be here to this day. Because how much time do you really have to try something new? Most people, when it comes to their idea of money, they believe that it's hard to get. So because they believe that it's hard to get, what ends up happening is, if you tell them that, well, you can just turn this knob and 150,000 will pop out, it sounds too good to be true. So if you send 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 leads and none of them qualify, what are you going to say? That I knew it was too good to be true. That thing doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that all it takes is hyper targeting, narrowing down your pitch, and then offering what it is that you have. So what's hyper targeting? Deciding who you want to impact. What's narrowing down your pitch? You have to have at least a 680 credit score or more in order to qualify for this program. High ticket offer financing will help you get the funding you need to move forward with zero documentation. And that's the thing that makes us different than anyone else. The no doc funding that we have is second to none. So to go into the progression, actually, once I was able to do 150 deals once I was able to accomplish 150 deals with this exact program, a few years later, of consistently doing that, consistently impacting multiple industries, some of the people that we do business with now is just out of this world, right? Like, high ticket offer financing doesn't do business with Zeus Network. Zeus Network is the number one black owned OTT platform in the world. Okay. Shout out to Lemuel Plummer. Shout out to Dow Farmer, and the whole Zeus team. But because of the funding options, we've been able to get into the exotic car space. And Zeus called us and asked us to provide them with cars for the Floyd Mayweather fight that they did in Florida, where Floyd Mayweather and John Gotti III fought. And to see all those cars lined up the way that they were, for them and for us, it was just a beautiful display. But that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for the funding. This is $1 billion company that we're talking about that we've been able to do business with on multiple occasions. And the foundation of it is funding. And why is the foundation of it funding? Because the funding allows us to get access to the cars. The cars allows us to impact a different demographic of people. And the reality is, when you have the mindset, when you have a product that works like ours and you have a creative mindset, you can take this business anywhere you want it to go and it will be as big as you want it to be. Our no doc funding goes up to $150,000. And just to explain no docs, even though you did a really good job talking about that at the last on our last podcast, to explain no docs, that means that you only need a 680 or better credit score that has some robustness to it. You don't need to prove income. You don't need to have tax returns, etc. You can just come in with a strong credit profile. And I tell people all the time, do not try to be a credit consultant. Like, if you have a 680 credit score, or even 650 if you have military affiliations, and that means like brother, cousin, uncle, aunt that's in the military living, then send your credit file over and we'll tell you within 24 hours if you're approved or not. And
a quick question on that approval: are there hard pulls? Are there any inquiries? Does it affect my score, my profile? How does that work?
With our pre-approval process, we have real human beings in the banking institutions reviewing your file. There are zero inquiries. We literally have funding experts looking at your file to see if you can get funded, right? So they'll assess your actual credit report from Experian.com and tell you how much money you can get based on that.
Quick question: why Experian? Why not like Credit Karma?
Credit Karma is not an accurate credit reporting system, right? So banks, most banks will start with your Experian score. Obviously, there's some banks that deal with TransUnion specifically, some banks that deal with Equifax specifically, but the majority of banks are looking at your Experian profile to determine whether or not you're fundable or not. That doesn't mean that your other profiles don't have to be robust, right? But it just means that we're analyzing the success of your file based on your Experian score. And unfortunately, with Credit Karma, they don't have the most accurate reporting for that mechanism. So whatever Credit Karma says your credit score is, if you go onto Experian.com, it's generally different.
Yeah, I literally have a difference right now as we speak of almost 60 points.
60 points different.
60 points higher on Experian than on Credit Karma.
And there you go. Right. So Credit Karma is not the route.
Okay, so let me ask you some questions. First off, on the funding business, how does this work? Let's say I want to come in, I want to have my own funding business, right? I understand people, they want to get funded. In fact, some quick stats: 50% of the US or more has a 680 plus credit score. So that's already 50% of the US. Okay, that's about at least 150 million people. Big market. 70% have at least a 660 or above, and then 90% have at least a 620. So the 500s, all that stuff, that's a very few minority, okay? So first off, we understand there's a very big, robust market, right? So you mentioned niching down in that market because you have so much to pick from. You want to make sure your messages is targeted. But how specifically, I'm someone brand new to this, right? I want to have my own funding business. Like, how's this thing work? What do I get? How do I get in? What do I have to do? What do you do for me? And what kind of money can I actually make on the other side of this?
The reality is that you can make as much money as many lives as you can impact. I tell everybody this, even though I have a high position in high ticket offer financing because I've been around for a long time. We all get paid exactly the same, right? So if I can do certain things and have a certain lifestyle, then so can anyone else that uses the platform. To me, it's about being serious about making money. I tell people all the time that, listen, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs aren't necessarily going to agree with what I'm going to say right now, but to me, there's a difference between following your passion and making money. I think that they're two very different things. And I think the problem is that in the entrepreneurial space, I don't know if it's just in our communities, but definitely in the entrepreneurial space in our communities, they're trying to promote this fusion of the two things, like go after your dreams until your dreams make you money. And the problem with that is that your dreams may not make you money. You might love snowboarding and you might not be good enough to be a professional snowboarder. You might love basketball. I played basketball in college, but you might not be strong enough to go to the NBA. There's only 300 guys in the NBA. There's 300 million Americans. I think 49 or 51% of them, I believe 49% of them or something like that, are men. Okay. All of y'all are not going to the NBA.
And even with the NBA, not everyone's even getting paid that much. There are people at the bottom that are making only 6-figure salaries.
Right. There's people in the NBA that are only making 6-figure salaries. So the reality is that if we learn to separate our passion from our finances, then we can start to operate like the wealthy operate. We should be learning about money in a very different way. We should be learning the foundational principles of money first and then following our passion second. What does that mean? That means understand credit, understand insurance, understand how cash flow works, understand how the banks work, understand real estate. I mean, even Grant Cardone said this. They asked Grant Cardone, what's the best business to start in 2023? And he said, a funding business. Why? Why is a real estate person saying that a funding business? It's the easiest business to start. Real estate developers need money. There was this book that I read that I think is absolutely incredible. Shout out to Alexis Holyfield for actually putting me onto this book. It's called The Banker's Code. And in The Banker's Code, it discusses 3 rings of society that every single human falls on. The vast majority are consumers. Then you have business owners. See, most people that are consumers believe that being a business owner is the key to success, is the key to financial freedom. All I have to do is have a successful business. But there's 30 million entrepreneurs. 98.1% of them make less than $1 million a year. 86% make less than 6-figure salaries. There are more people with 9-to-5s that make close to 6 figures than there are entrepreneurs as far as ratio of people in that space. So the reality is that it's not just owning a business, right? So that's the second thing. Most people own a business that's really just a secondary job for them. They haven't figured out how to automate all of their processes so they can step away from the business and scale it. The last thing is becoming a banker. Now, most people don't believe that they can become the bank, right? We do business with the bank. Most people have their money in the bank, right? So we all know that the bank exists. But when you start your own funding business, you can actually become the bank. And what does that mean? You're brokering loans for people, right? Which means you have what? Unlimited access to capital. People don't think about it like that. Every single business, let's say you're not passionate about funding. Let's say, oh, well, I want to be an astronaut. I want to start an astronaut uniform company. Okay, great. Well, how are you going to start an astronaut uniform company without money? So what most people do is they start a business. They end up spending all of their money trying to create a successful business, right? It's like, I'm going to go into the studio and I'm going to spend all my money creating this music. I'm going to go into I'm going to go into the manufacturing and I'm going to spend all my money creating the best quality t-shirt that exists. And then it just ends up sitting on the shelf. So you have the greatest product in the world, but nobody can see it. So it's right. So it all needs money in order to move. So then when you become a funding consultant or a banker, now you're helping people get access to money. And here's the thing about being a banker. Bankers do business with both consumers and business owners, just like we help people get personal and business funding. Mm-hmm. So that means what? The consumers and the business owners are working for who? The bank. Because everybody has to pay their debt before they pay themselves. Otherwise their personal finances are upside down. Everybody has to pay their taxes before they pay themselves. So that means your money just got hit. Your money just got cut in half again, right? So everybody's working for the bank and the government at the end of the day. So how do you get it where the banks can work for you? That's what having a funding business does. It allows you to leverage all of the trillions of dollars that are in this reservoir called a bank. You get to leverage all of that. You get to have access to all of that. All you have to do is find qualified people who can get access to the money now. And here's the thing, the banks have to let that money, they have to print that money. That money has to go somewhere. So if the consumers have to do business with the bank to get the credit lines to purchase the product, if the business owners have to do business with the bank to get the money to start their business, market their business, buy inventory for their business, then who's winning? Who's the bank doing business with? The bank is at the top of the totem pole. They're the ones that do business with everybody. And guess what? They also don't have to do any of the work. The money never has to do the work. So if you like to travel, if you like to enjoy your life, guess what? The money never has to do the work. Right now, I have equity in an entire super luxury car travel network that literally is going to give people the ability to do some incredible things with super luxury cars. Mm-hmm. And I got equity in that company with zero money out of pocket. So when you're doing business with the bank, you get to leverage that money in a multitude of different ways to get equity in people's business. You don't have to be there. You don't have to physically do any work. You don't have to get the money. You don't have to apply for the loans. That's what having your own funding business with high ticket offer financing is like. It's literally connecting a qualified lead with a system that works and you get paid.
So unpack that for me for a second. How do you use this funding business to do things like get equity in businesses? How does that work?
So every business needs money to succeed. We've already covered that. Every single business needs money to succeed. So you pick the business that you want to impact. You pick the people that you want to do business with. On the last podcast we did, you said something very interesting that I agree with. You said, I only do business with people that I like. Okay, so pick the people that you like. Pick the businesses that you want to do business with. Pick the businesses and the industries that you want to do business in. There are a significant amount of people in that industry that need access to capital. So what happens if you have your own funding business and you go up to them and you say, listen, Eric, I can help you get all of the capital that you need to get your business off the ground. These are the qualifications that are needed to get the funding. You can get funding, or we can create a very specific model where we can create a financial model that allows other people to come in and invest with you without having the money in their account. Like, we can just get the money from the banks. Okay. With something like this, I can get up to $3 million per qualified lead. I can get up to 150,000 with little to no documentation. Okay. I'll help you build out the entire system into your business. You don't have to pay me anything. Just give me a piece of your business. Who's saying no to that? Who's saying no to that? Like literally what I just said, who's saying no to that? Because if you can't get the money, then there's no equity to give you. But if you can get the money, then everybody's winning. That's how you do it. And that's how I've done it. Once I understood how impactful this can be, I started dreaming about who I wanted to become and how many lives I wanted to impact. I want to take a moment and I want to digress into God really quick, because I think that people underestimate the power of God in business, right? And why is this important? Because a lot of times we end up overthinking. Like, you're listening to this podcast right now and many of you are like, yeah, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. I could start my own funding company, etc. But then we start rationalizing how, oh, well, I don't have good credit, so most people don't have good credit. That's the mentality that most people have. They think just because they don't have good credit, that most people don't have good credit. But you said at the beginning of this podcast, you said over 50% of the United States has over a 700 credit score. So the reality is that just because you don't have it doesn't mean that the next person does. As a matter of fact, 1 out of every 2 people you talk to can potentially qualify for our program. The reason why this is important is because once you have the desire to do it, then God will figure out all the rest of the steps. You don't need to figure out the steps. Guys, I was making less than $30,000 a year, okay? I was sleeping on my mother's couch, okay? I was homeless at one point, literally. And then quite literally overnight, which was literally a time span of a year, from the time that I said, this is what I'm doing, to this next calendar year, I closed 150 deals. And what did I tell you? I said the lowest one was 700, roughly. So do the math. Even if it was just $700 per deal, that's over $1 million in my first year in business. Why? Because I focused on a skill set I never had. I focused on just the opportunity that existed. If I can figure out a way to get this product in front of people who have the qualifications, then I can do 100 deals like this. And 100 deals times 700 equals 700,000. And we did that with no ads, 0 ads.
That's actually my next question. So people are probably wondering, like, okay, cool, 150 deals. How do I find a deal? How do I find someone that could be qualified? Yeah, I get it. 50% could be qualified, but what are the practical steps I can take, or what's the strategy or the blueprint that I can have to get 150 deals in a year?
Great question. So I'll just tell you how I started. When I started, the first thing I did was I called everybody I knew. Okay, that's like network marketing 101. I called everybody I knew and I told them that I can help them get funding for themselves or their business if they needed it. Guess what? The difference between funding and network marketing is that the majority of people, even though they have these robust credit profiles, they have no idea that they can get access to this capital. And believe it or not, and this was my thought process coming in, because guess what? When I first started my business, the company that I was working under was doing 3 deals a year. I did 150. What was the difference? The difference was that they were targeting people with bad credit, helping them fix their credit so that they can then one day get good credit so that they can get funded. And I just looked at that time horizon and I just felt like that wasn't realistic for me and what I wanted to achieve. Like, I'm not going to bankroll, and this is no disrespect to people who have bad credit, because I've stretched out my credit and done all kinds of stuff with my credit. But I'm not going to bankroll my existence, my livelihood on somebody who has already demonstrated that they can't make payments on time. Because if that's the case, then what are they going to do with the credit restoration? They're going to miss payments, most likely. So now I'm delaying my destiny by trying to work with people who don't have good credit, helping them get good credit just so that I can help them get funding. And that's why you see a lot of credit repair people doing funding. It's not because, oh, well, I do credit repair, so it's natural that we do funding. That's what they like to tell you. But the reality is that most credit repair specialists are doing funding. The most credit repair specialists are also doing funding. They might also be doing real estate. That's hustle mentality. And there's nothing wrong with being a hustler, but as a funding consultant, I've never had to do more than that. Right? And that's the reality of it. And it's not that these individuals aren't working hard. It's just the mentality I had was like, all right, cool. If 30 million entrepreneurs, if there's 30 million entrepreneurs in the United States, 300 million people in the United States, now that number has grown. But if there's 30 million entrepreneurs in the United States and 98.1% of them make less than $1 million per year, 86% make less than 100,000 per year, and 50% of them roughly have over a 700 credit score, then that means that there are people that are struggling financially that have great credit. Mathematically speaking, there are a lot of people who are struggling financially that have great credit. And that was my thought process. Okay, if most people don't have money, but 50% of the United States has over a 700 credit score, then that means that I can help people who have good credit get funding, and I can get paid now, not in next year, the way that they were doing it originally before I came. And I tested that theory, man. In my first 7 days, I closed 10 funding deals at $700 a piece. My first 10 days. Just calling people in my phone and just letting them know that I had access to for them to get the maximum amount of funding that they could possibly get. But all they needed was a 680 credit score or better, and I could help them. And I was calling people I barely knew. I was calling people that I worked with a couple times. I was calling people that I was currently doing business with. I was on my mother's couch closing these deals. I had no money. My mom, screaming, telling me to get a job in the next room. I was 26 years old and I still was struggling to make money. And I had my mother telling me to get a job. I had my parents telling me, why didn't I go to college? This is your problem, right? This is the problem that you have. You don't have an education. You don't have a good foundation. You need to get a job. My first 10 deals, I made more than $7,000. And I told my mother I remember this. I closed my first $7,000 and I was living on my mother's couch, right? So I said, I'm moving into the place that I want to move into. So I got this fly crib. Because at that time, now it's different. Like now, you have, New York, Miami, LA, you're going to spend $5,000 to $7,000 a month to live at something luxurious. But at that time, if not more, you know what I mean? Yeah. But at that time, for $3,500, you could get something nice. So I got something nice. My mother was like, well, why don't you live a little bit below your means and not get something so nice? You just started making money a couple weeks ago. I said, nah, because the worst case scenario is I'm gonna be back on this couch with you. The best case scenario is I'm about to give myself the experience of a lifetime and the story of a lifetime. I love stories. So like, why would I not have the opportunity to tell my grandkids a story about how I was living on my mother's couch and literally moved into this one of the most luxurious apartments that I could possibly afford at the time, overlooking the Manhattan skyline in New York, like floor to ceiling windows, island in the kitchen. And I was just on my mother's couch the month before, digging through trash cans a year before that. What you need is tenacity to be successful in this industry. You need tenacity to be successful in any business, period. But a lot of businesses require money in order to get it off the ground. So even if you have tenacity, your likelihood of being successful at that business is still going to be low, just by the fact that the margins are too low. So you need money to market, or the people don't have the money to buy the product that you're selling at scale. So in order for you to be successful, in this business, you can do this exact same marketing method that I did. So I started off calling the leads directly from my phone. Okay. After I exhausted that list, I then went on the internet and started reaching out to influencers that I felt that weren't in my industry, but had large followings that I thought could support my industry. So they were either entrepreneurs or credit restoration specialists or real estate professionals. Like, these are the different individuals that I decided to partner with early on to get the word out. Influencers, though, that had massive followings, did a few events, boom. After those few events, now I have a bunch of people getting funded. But the people who didn't qualify, which on average is going to be about half the room at least that don't qualify, right? We're just talking about sheer numbers. I gave them the opportunity to become an affiliate, to become a partner with me. So I was converting on both sides because I thought to myself, well, if I can turn people who don't qualify like I didn't qualify, into individuals like me, and I can build an army of these individuals that are serious about doing funding, then I can 10x, 20x, 100x, 1000x my performance just by splitting my commissions with people who didn't even know this opportunity existed. Now, very few people take it as seriously as I do because of the mental limitations that they have. But the ones that do, I mean, shoot, your first 5 days, you call somebody who got pre-approved for 500,000. So think about it. If you're getting 1%, 2%, 3% of a $1 million deal, that's $30,000. And that's $30,000 that you didn't have to leave your house to achieve at all. Especially in today's economy, you just flick on a Zoom and you're closing deals. So to me, the funding industry is just straight to the point. Like, it's literally just straight to the point. Like, if I'm doing business, because like I said earlier, people think that passion and business are aligned. For some people, passion and business is aligned. For most people, passion and business is not aligned. When I was younger, I built my life around low probability because I thought that I was the special one. I was the most talented. I was the greatest one who was going to come in and be able to be part of that 300 people that made it to the NBA. But there were factors that made that either unattractive or impossible for me to cross those thresholds the way that I wanted to cross them. Funding is straight to the point. It's money. So you can't ask, if you think about it, you ask the bank, well, how can I make money with you? Well, we print the money. So it's not about earning money. It's just about creating it. Like, creating the money, bro. So once you understand that you're working with the institutions that create the money, now you just have to get the word out to everybody else that, hey, I work for the people who create the money. So if you want to get access to 50,000, 150,000, $1 million, talk to me. And guess what? There's no fee up front for you to do so. I only get paid if I help you get funding. How many people out of 100 are going to say yes? Well, let me see if it'll work. 90%, 80%. So if I have 10 leads, 80% of them are willing to give me a shot. And out of that 80%, we're probably going to fund 80% of them, all 80% of them. So out of that 80%, we'll fund 99 to 100% of them. So now do the math. If you can now 8 out of 10 qualified leads are coming back, filling out applications, interested in getting funding with you, then the only thing you have to do at that point is, the third thing is become a professional. So you can reach out to your own qualified leads. I mean, you can reach out to your own leads in your phone. Then from there, you partner up with influencers, but then you become a professional. And that's when you take your business to the next level. That's the real top of the food chain. Becoming a professional is when you pick and select a niche, right, that you want to impact. And after you select that niche, you dig down into that niche and find out what the problems and challenges that niche is facing. So challenges, let's use music as an example, because that was one that I started with. I've always been passionate about music because both my parents were in the music industry. And I saw that roller coaster ride firsthand. I experienced it as the child. My dad, the vice president of Capitol Records, my mom, a 2-time Grammy nominated singer. I saw my dad rise to the top of Capitol Records, and I'm in limos every day and on the Arsenio Hall show and with Michael Jackson and Brian McKnight and all of these different people. And then I saw him get cut from the record label and our life just take a drastic U-turn and go in the opposite direction. Now, I found out later on that my dad didn't want to be in the music industry anymore, but he didn't want to be in the music industry because he knew that there was a short time span on how long he could do it. So he did it for as long as he can. And then when he saw the war was approaching, he got fired, but then he went into the education system. My mother is still a singer to this day. I saw my mom have some incredible ups, and I saw my mom have some lows, right? And to me, it all boils down to money. When you look at a record deal, right, not to go too deep into the music business, but I understand this because this is how I started. When you look at a record deal, all a record label is doing is giving you money. They're just a bank for musicians. So why would a musician not just fix their credit and they can become their own bank? Like, why are we waiting to be selected by a record label when we can just select ourselves, fix our credit, and then get the money we need to promote our product? Now we can take a risk on ourselves. This is the thing about business, though, that people don't understand is like, and I'm going to get back to being a professional, but most people want investors to come into their business, but they've never actually invested into their own business themselves. It doesn't work like that. Like, you don't need an investor at 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, maybe 500, a million, maybe if you don't have strong enough credit profile, maybe. But for the vast majority of you, you do not need an investor into your business. You don't need an investor in your business. So this is the reason why you can't get investor dollars, is because any intelligent investor will say, well, why do you need 150,000? That means you haven't even invested into yourself. Why would I give you money if you haven't invested into yourself yet? So I can take the risk? So I can be the one to lose while you figure out how to make your business work? I was listening to a guy named Dan Pena, old guy, but love his like energy. Dan, you know who Dan Pena is.
Yeah, of course.
Dan Pena said that it's going to cost you $5 million to make your first million. And then after that, you can succeed. So you want to risk my money as the investor when I know as an investor, because I'm probably in a position to give you money because I probably do business with the bank. So let's just cut all of the BS. Let's cut down to the point. Investors are doing business with the bank, and they're capitalizing on the fact that you don't know how to do business with the bank. So that's why you need an investor, because you don't know how to do business with the bank. So you're asking an investor to give you money that you can get for yourself. And all they're doing is going into a bank or going into an insurance policy, borrowing the money and giving it to you. They're not even using their own money. So once I understood this concept, I just do the same thing. I leverage the same opportunity that we have for capital to gain equity and opportunities as well. Now, the difference is that there's a lot more to high ticket offer financing, which we'll discuss. A lot more things that I've learned over the years that businesses need to succeed, like the 3 things that we'll discuss, right? Earning, protecting, growing. So it's kind of like I've been able over the years to create a more robust situation that I can bring to the table for people. But just off of the money, you can get equity in individuals' businesses just for that. So if you want to be successful, and if you even want to get investors, you first have to bankroll yourself. And bankrolling yourself is very simple. Just fix your credit if you don't already have it fixed, and then come to highticketofferfinancing.com and get funded. And the reason why I say come to highticketofferfinancing.com and get funded is not because there's not other funding companies out there. Let me just be clear. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you guys that there's no other funding companies out there. I'm just telling you guys that there's no other funding companies that's going to fund you at scale the way that we do it. They're just not going to do it. They're just not. Why? Because we've aggregated all of these different programs together that are alternative funding programs for entrepreneurs and regular people that are not entrepreneurs. How do you find these programs? They don't just exist. Most people say that they can do funding, and you go into their system and they don't actually do funding. Most people say they do funding, and you might get 1 out of 10 of the people you send over get funding. That's not sustainable. Who's excited about closing 1 out of 10 deals? Mm-hmm. That's not sustainable. I just said that with high ticket offer financing, we are literally closing, let's say, what would you say the average ratio of influx of people versus deals being closed?
It's hard to say, but I would say probably at least 85% of deals that are qualified are getting closed. Because the only time someone does not actually get closed and convert is because they just never really interested in the first place, and they're like, who am I talking to? Why am I here? They're passed off in a very weird way, right? So besides that, I mean, just about everybody, as long as they're qualified, that's the only factor we really look at.
Now, I'm going to say one thing that I also want to add, and then I want to get back into the being a professional and what that looks like. But the other thing about our funding business, which was the last caveat that I wanted to bring to the table, that I could never find somebody who was as aggressive as I was to make this happen, was bringing the closers in, which is what you got, which is what you did, right? So what you've brought to the table is what has made this industry, is what's made our business so seamless for entrepreneurs and people who start their own funding business. So I actually wanted to talk to you about that really quick. As somebody who's bringing the closers, what can people who start their own funding business with us expect as far as the seamlessness, as far as the integration of it into their business and their lives?
Yeah, I mean, it's super smooth. Really, all you need to do with your own funding business, I mean, obviously with the funding, we're doing all the fulfillment, right? So you have 3 sides of any business. You have sales, you have marketing, you have fulfillment. Pretty simple. You can add in operations, but it kind of encompasses all of these things. So we already have fulfillment, right? We're funding people. And then 2, with us, we're also doing the sales side. So all these people need to do, or all you need to do, is literally just send people that are interested in funding, ideally qualified. Obviously, there'll be % that you send that won't be qualified, and that's fine. Just focus on the ones with a 680 plus credit score. Don't worry about the rest. And then our team will do all the work. We're make sure that they understand how the process works. We will get their experience report, so we can go ahead and see if they're qualified. We'll go through a pre-approval process that has no effect to their file, no inquiries, none of that. And we'll be able to let them know whether or not we can help them and how much capital we can get them specifically. Then from there, we'll get on the phone with them. We answer any questions they have. We'll make sure they feel comfortable with the process and are ready to move forward. And then from there, the deal is closed. We get all the paperwork done, and then the funding process officially begins, and they get funded within usually about a week or 2.
Beautiful. Now I want to ask you another question about the intervals, the payment intervals, because obviously somebody can start their own funding business and say, well, how do I know I'm going to get paid if I send a lead? So I want to talk to you as somebody who came into high ticket offer financing and brought your own sauce to the table. What is that experience like?
Yeah, it's right away. As soon as the money's hit, as soon as the client gets funded, we invoice the client, we get paid, all the partners get paid out immediately. Because one thing, like you, just like myself with my sales team, the second the money hits my account, I don't want it sitting in there. I want to get rid of it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to wait for a week. I don't want none of that. I want it out right away because I want to make sure everyone's paid, everyone's getting happy. So with you, it's the same thing. I don't even have to think about it. In fact, I'll wake up one day, oh, cool, money hit the account. Sweet. Didn't even expect that today. That's a great start to the day, right?
So getting back to the professional piece, becoming a professional in business is when you really start to take your business and your life to the next level. And that looks like picking a niche, right? Like picking the demographic that you want to service and that you want to help. Becoming knowledgeable of all of the challenges that that demographic faces in the industry that they're in. And then becoming knowledgeable about the solution that you want to provide to that demographic. That is called your pitch. So when I was thinking about music and financing, it was very simple to me. What do all musicians want? To have their music heard. How do all musicians think? If they have enough market, if they're marketed properly and their music is heard, they can be a star. So I'm not going to be in the business of producing artists. I'm going to be in the business of helping artists get the money they need so that they can see if that is the case, right? If your music is good enough that only thing that you need is a couple dollars to market your music and everybody's going to love it, then how about I help you get the money so that you can get the couple dollars you need so everybody can hear your music, and now we know if it's going to hit or not. That's it. Right? So that's your pitch. Your pitch is understanding those three things. Who are you serving? What are their challenges? What is the solution? After you become a professional, after you have a professional pitch, then you can either create a deck to explain your pitch, right? Explain the demographic that you're serving, what challenges they face, and how your product or service is facilitating that solution for them. Okay. Now you have a deck. I didn't even say you needed a website yet, because you really don't. All you need is a pitch, a deck so somebody can read, and a calendar so they can book a call with you. Because people buy people. They don't buy websites. I made my first 10 sales plus with no website. None. You do not need a website to start making money in the funding space. People are willing to give you a try if they have to pay no money up front and they can see if it succeeds. And if you properly pre-qualified them, then you know that 50% of the people, at least 50% of the people that you send are going to get approved. If you properly pre-qualified them, saying, let's use music as an example. I help musicians get the money they need to market and promote their products and services. All you need is a 680 credit score or a co-signer with a 680 credit score or better that's willing to support your career, and we can help you get the money you need to market and promote your music. That is the pitch. You send that to 100 musicians. You don't think 20 of them are going to reach back? 10 of them are going to reach back? Out of those 10, maybe 5 are qualified. Out of those 5, 80 to 90% of them are going to go through. So you close 4 deals and you made a couple thousand on every deal or several thousand on every deal. You're up. So now those things, you have a deck, you have a calendar. Now, the next thing you need to do, so what do we have? Your pitch. Your pitch is picking a niche, finding the challenges of that niche, and coming up with a solution for that niche. The next thing is having a deck that has those 3 things in writing so people could look at it and feel connected to what it is that you're doing. If you send a deck to somebody that has those 3 things in it and you've sent it to the right demographic, they are going to be interested in just knowing if you can solve their problem. Because if the problem you've found, the challenge you've found for them is really their challenge, they will move when they see that. They will want to get on the phone with you because they're tired of experiencing what they're currently experiencing. There's no musician in the world that has been pushing their music for a significant amount of time and has not gotten traction that hasn't already come to the conclusion that they need money in order to market and promote their business. And you have the solution. Now you become the savior for them, the person who can help them. Okay, so those are the 5 things. The next thing you want to do is partner up with an influencer or multiple influencers, but all you have to do is start with one. You partner up with an influencer and you give them a financial incentive. Hey, you know what? I'll give you X amount per deal that closes with your network. If you pick the right influencer that's already interested in helping that demographic, then all you've done is help that person make more money for doing less work, and you're also giving them something that they know their demographic needs, which is access to capital. Again, it boils down to a little bit of research so you can pick the right person. Once you have those 5 things, you pick the niche, you understand their challenge, you understand how your product is a solution for that niche. You also have a deck, you have a calendar so people can book calls with you, and you partnered up with an influencer that's servicing your niche but is not your direct competition, somebody that you can offer incentives to. You cannot lose. All right, cool, let's take it to the next level. Now you film that event you did with that influencer, or even that podcast you did with that influencer. You film it, right? And you have that influencer who people trust co-signing you with your financing product and saying, hey, listen, if you want to get the money you need to promote your music career, to start to finance your film, to start your exotic car business, make sure you call my man Eric. He'll take care of you. That one cosign can now be turned into what? An advertisement. Now, you're not only have you been making money the entire time because now this influencer is actively promoting you. So you're getting money organically, but now you take that money and you roll it over into an ad campaign where you take a clip from that piece of content that you did with that influencer, and now you're running it as an ad campaign. And 100% of the things that I said that you can do to get this business off the ground didn't take you any money until you got to the ads. Because you don't have to, if you select the right influencer who's already talking to your niche, you don't have to pay that influencer because they know that working with you, they can make money or they can have a bigger impact with their demographic. So you won. That is the secret to success in this industry. And you can literally run that over and over and over and over again. And when you capitalize on a niche to the maximum potential, you then go and work with another niche. And you do it over and over and over again when all of the niches that you want to be successful in. It's no way that you can't be successful in this industry if you have a product that works and you've done all of the things that I've said. This is literally the trajectory that I did to become who I am today.